All right, so we're going to start with 8 and 9 this week. From here on out, there isn't really a whole lot of new information to go over. A lot of the processes and stages that you need to go through and lists that you have to go through are not really anything new. There are a few things, and I'll go over those. But what you have from the personal level and the team level, those tools can be used to go forward um, through the organizational level and the global level and the community level, of course. So, starting with chapter 8. It's over leadership at the organizational level, and it starts off by discussing 5 qualities of adaptive organization. The chapter also mentions not only using the tools that you utilize, like I said, at the personal and team levels, but also using them in different levels going forward. So you should be able to take everything that you've learned from the personal and team levels and adapt it into something that you can use at a larger level or a larger scale. So, adaptive organization has 5 qualities that are discussed by Heifetz, I can't say the name again, and his team. They are the length of time it takes for information to be spread within the organization, whether or not senior management addresses challenges or crises without retaliation, the expectation that senior management will have answers and or promises, having an adaptive quality whenever challenges occur, and leaders need to have time to reflect on the experiences. So, Um, from that, I think information can be spread pretty quickly because now we have the use of technology and social media that allow us to do so, and it can be done in a fairly quickly manner. And whenever it comes to challenges or crisis, without retaliation, you should expect that something's going to happen or arise. Don't ever think that you're going to start a project and fly right on through without anything happening. So be aware of that because at the organizational level, you're gonna have people who are definitely not willing to change or adapt to new policies. And that's just how it is. People just don't like change, or some people are resistant to change. So how those are addressed and managed is very important. You don't want to have a bad day with somebody and say, "Oh, well, they obviously don't get it, so we're gonna exert like expel them from the project, or we're just gonna like leave them on their own, or we'll get them in trouble to the point where they get fired or whatever happens." That's not how things should be done. You don't want anyone to be able to say, "Well, I don't feel like this is right," and then ostracize them for it. And then have the expectation that senior management will have answers and or promises. Yes, they need to have answers. They shouldn't really make promises without definite information because you don't want someone, it's kind of like when you have someone running for class president. Oh, I'm going to promise that we get Chick-fil-A in our cafeteria. They can't do that. That class president has no bearing on that. So if a manager says, "I promise XYZ," they need to make sure that they have that set in stone so that they can meet that promise. And having answers, they should have the answer. But I will say that if you are in a management position and you don't know the answer, it should be totally okay. You do not need to dwell on the fact that you don't have the answer for a question. You're not going to have the answers for everything. Then the guidelines for strategic planning are team members and the leader need to share the same vision. Now, if you remember back, um, discussing the differences between a manager and a leader and a team versus what the leader really is in terms of that team, they need to have the same vision. They don't necessarily need to try and adhere to a mission. They're looking for a vision. Number two, a timeline needs to be established. That's really important because if you have a project that should take 6 months, it should take 6 months. You don't need to draw it out to 2 years or 3 years because then you're wasting time and you're wasting money in the long run. And number three, consideration for how the plan is going to be accepted after planning it. Four, a schedule needs to be created along with the timeline. Five, discussion of the results must be done. And this also goes with spreading the information. So, disseminating the results is important because you may want to do a survey to see how well receptive people are to the change. And that way, not only are they getting the information or being able to have a put in on what they feel or believe, but you're also spreading the information. And number six, an evaluation process must be determined by the team. And this should be qualitative or quantitative, just like whenever you did your planning and evaluation for your last portfolio assignment. You need to think about how do you want to evaluate the process. Then to learn the benefits from the planning process, determine readiness for change, perform analyses over what needs to be done, include stakeholders and the community so they can be informed over what is taking place. Remain optimistic and motivational because sometimes there are a lot of downers when you implement change. So you have to stay optimistic. You're going to have bad days, sure. And as a leader, you need to be motivational. So just keep that in mind whenever you have a bad day or something doesn't go quite how you thought it should go. Just remain optimistic. And then prepare for each next step in the planning process so that you know where you are going. You don't want to get to the next step and finish it and then on in the back of your mind think, now where do we need to go? You need to be prepared. So, um, scheduling out your needs is important in being able to prepare for each next step. Be realistic about what is possible because you don't want to inflate or go beyond what is actually possible. Again, just like being a class president, you can't make promises that you can't keep. So don't even try to do it to yourself. Don't say it to yourself, oh, this is going to work, when in reality, you really know that it's not going to work. And perform assessments. Again, both qualitative and quantitative assessments. Now let's talk about strategic planning versus continuous quality improvement or CQI. The difference between strategic planning and CQI is that strategic planning can be listed in steps, whereas CQI is the acceptance of a whole new philosophy without planning it out. But there are 7 tools to use for CQI. There are control charts, which shows statistics. I cannot talk today. Shows statistical process activities. You have Pareto charts, which graphically show the defects and problems over time. A fishbone diagram, they trace the cause and effect relationships. Run charts display trends over time. Histograms showing service patterns at given time periods. Scatter diagrams shows the relationship between two factors, and flow charts show the input and output relationships. So all these charts and diagrams serve a specific purpose. and what relationships there are among the different aspects of a change that has been put in place. So, learning the seven different tools is important so that you can find any faults or shortcomings in your plan and make the appropriate changes or adaptations. And then we move into chapter 9, which is super short. And I didn't really even go through all the lists and strategies for all of these because it kind of depends on where you work and what they have in place. So I'm just gonna just touch on, sorry, my cat's in here too, on what things you need to kind of keep in mind. But with chapter 9, it really talks about politics, policies, and governance. So when it comes to politics and policies, it is important to keep them separated and know how you want to keep them separated in your mind or mentally. There are many aspects of politics that should not be discussed, and we all know this. We also know that it isn't professional to discuss certain political type issues at work. It's really not acceptable because you don't want to make someone mad or begrudging against you just because you have a specific view of a political stance. However, when you have to take policies into consideration when developing new practices or procedures or make changes. This information is relevant. Um, just because the policies that are passed through political action have to be followed. So you have to stay focused on the policies and not the political aspect that is governing the changes. One major aspect of this is in healthcare is HIPAA. HIPAA laws change, and every year I don't know if you all have experienced this, but whenever you go to the doctor every year, they make you sign a HIPAA agreement stating that yes, you know what it is, and yes, you are aware of what the rules are, even if you don't read the document. So make sure you're aware of the governance process, how um, or what a trustee on the Board of Health does, governing boards versus advisory boards for a corporation or a healthcare entity. In the board building cycle, each board has a cycle that they go through whenever they reestablish or establishing new board members. And then they should have a Board of Health manual and processes on how those are developed. So, and most of these are politically driven, but just keep in mind that politics should not get in the way of what an organization should be able to do. And the policies that are put in place by governance or political leaders, uh, those are important. You have to keep those in mind. It's a law. You have to follow the rules. Don't ever try to bend the rules. There are a lot of places that try to bend the rules so much that I honestly don't know how they get away with it. But as long as you follow the policies and procedures and you have a good plan and a good path on how to adhere to those policies and procedures at the organizational level, everything should work out fine. Um, so from here on out, the lectures are not going to be very long, just like this one. And so I'm adding in maybe a little more difficult or lengthy portfolio assignments. Um, and this first one that you're getting, which I'm going to take a look at some of them and see if I can cut them down because this one is pretty long. This one, and you have a statistical one at the end of the semester. And so the lecture for the accounting portion, accounting finance portion, um, is going to be a little bit longer, but I'd rather you know how to do that than drone on about the same policies and procedures and processes that have already been discussed from here on out. So, this is it for chapter 8 and chapter 9. Make sure you read the chapters. There is a midterm quiz, or a midterm exam. It is not monitored just like the others. And I put information on Blackboard, I think, about if you didn't do well on a quiz in the past, go back and look at those and go through the questions and see if you can find the answers. If you can't, let me know, because of some of the questions that are on the midterm are on uh, prior quizzes. So um, I don't want anyone to do poorly on it, and I did shorten it a lot. So that shouldn't be difficult. And then you have a quiz for chapters 8 and 9. And I think that's it. Everything, though, is not due until the 30th. So you have quite a bit of time. Um, and that's the end of spring break, I believe. So don't rush through the accounting stuff. And I will say that there are several documents that I have added to Blackboard, and I'll be adding some more. One of them is your rubric for it. One is how to improve it in the grading scale. One of them is a document where it has black and purple text on it, and anything that is in purple, you need to answer those questions. Um, and then there's also an assignment statement. I call these like little statements. Like, it tells you what you're going to do. If you need help, more help with that, I'm going to put out a document. I'm going to create a document tomorrow to list out all the different things so that you can have like a check sheet, saying, yes, I did this. Yes, I did this. Yes, I did this. So that it can kind of flow for you and not be as difficult. Now, if you haven't had any experience with accounting or finance, I know that that can be maybe a little daunting, but the next lecture that I put out tomorrow is going to cover a lot of it, and hopefully everyone can get it from there. I've had difficulty in the past with this assignment just because I think people are afraid of it unless they've had accounting. Um, so, with all that being said, if you have any questions at all regarding any of the assignments, I've put out a detailed thing in Blackboard, or if you have any additional questions, please email me and let me know. Everyone is doing really well so far. Um, and I will see you guys later. You'll see me tomorrow.